It's a great day. My name is Shay Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the #1 business development and revenue-focused late-night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission is to empower. Our mission is to inspire. And our mission is to provide you, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And today, this morning, whatever time you watch, we got the one and only Adrienne Wise, who's in the building. What's going on, Adrienne? How are you?
Hey, Shay, I'm doing well. How are you?
Man, we are moving in the fast lane. Super excited. I couldn't wait for this particular episode because you're going to be helping folks at the end of the day rebuild, building resilient teams through, and this is the part that got me, informed trauma leadership. Now, the minute I said informed trauma leadership, someone said, what is that? So take a moment and kind of explain what is informed trauma leadership.
Yeah, Shay. So, it's actually trauma-informed care leadership. And what that is first we have to identify what is trauma, right? We think of sometimes the worst case scenario of situations that have experienced or circumstances that we have experienced in life and determine that to be traumatic. But actually, me and you both, Shay, could have experienced the same event, and you could have walked away experiencing it as it was terrible, it was a challenge, but maybe it wasn't traumatic to you like it was to me. So trauma is really defined as a deeply disturbing, distressful event. And so after we define what trauma is, then what I do is I go into workplaces and I help them understand how trauma, when gone unaddressed, shows up in the workplace environment. So I help teams thrive and rebuild and build resilience and work through their challenges that they're experiencing with their employees and their staff within the workplace by providing this concept called trauma-informed care leadership.
Now, is this trauma for someone who has had trauma in their own life? Or was it trauma, something that happened to the organization? And I'm just curious because, man, going through divorce is trauma, but it could be trauma. I'm a primary caregiver, mother dear. He's 75 years old, has Parkinson's, and she's cognitive and everything. But still, that was for about 90 days as we transitioned her into a senior apartment building. I mean, I don't know if that's considered trauma, but it seemed like the whole world stopped. So my question to you is, and I say that just to bring an example, is what type of trauma are you referring to so that folks listening can determine if it's them or maybe someone they know?
Absolutely. It's either or, Shay. It could be any experience that you've experienced personally or interpersonally. You could have been exposed to something traumatic, but it also could be sometimes workplaces cause trauma unintentionally, but sometimes they do. And, we all just experienced this big event, the whole world did together, called COVID. And some people had to all of a sudden work remotely, or some people during COVID was still asked to come into work every day. And that could have been considered a traumatic experience for them, right? Because again, it just depends on what is described or what is determined to be a deeply disturbing or distressful event to you. So either one of those could be traumatic.
So let's talk to the person that's having trauma in their life, but they still have a full-time job. Is that something that you're going in and working with the organization to try to find those individuals? Or I'm just asking so folks listen to understand at home, it says, oh, I'm going through a situation. I go self-check myself in, if we can call it that. And then you work with me one-on-one. Just kind of break it down for folks that are listening. A lot of the audience, by the way, Adrienne, are dualpreneurs, right? So they deal with this. They're at the office and they deal with these situations every day.
Yeah. So what I do is I help organizations and teams understand that we're going to have experiences that are going to impact us on a day-to-day basis, right? And then I help them see how it shows up in the workplace. So I'm not coming in, even though my background is a therapist, an emotional wellness therapist, I don't come into the workplace and provide therapy, right? But what I do is I come into the workplace as a consultant, and I provide a set of tools and strategies to help leaders recognize and how to recognize that they can see in their staff that things are happening that's impacting their day-to-day. You see staff that are falling asleep often. They don't seem as interested in the work that they're doing. They don't feel value. The morale in the workplace is low. or you have situations where productivity is not as high or high turnover. All of those things tend to come from usually what's experienced as a toxic work environment. But what it's sort of the foundation of that is individuals coming to the workplace with their unaddressed trauma. And it's just kind of spilling out all over the place in all these ways. So I'm working with teams to help change this work environment and change this culture and bring it back to what the organization was set out to do, which is to achieve the mission and the goal to likely help others and provide services to the public or whatever the organization is. That's what I'm there to do. And I do that in strategies of training. I'm doing that in coaching. And sometimes I do have to do that in one-to-one. Shay, you brought that up earlier, but my one-to-ones is usually with those C-suite level leaders that I'm working with to help them define what they need to do to fix the problems within their teams.
Sure. So thanks for sharing. Can you help me and say, okay, Shay, here's one or two things you should look for, maybe three things you should look for as someone that's working in working in an environment like that. So you have two different clients. So let's talk about the first person that's having the problem. So I'm identifying having the problem. What are some things I should look for and what action should I take? That's number one. And ladies and gentlemen, she can handle a two-part question. And the other part of it is I'm the leader, right? I mean, I'm the manager. I'm responsible for the group or the organization. What I need to look for to see if we're fit the category of this trauma crisis that's going on.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think as the individual employee, I want everybody to recognize that there are certain triggers and certain things that are happening, and you may not readily understand what it's connected to or why it's even happening, but you know what it feels like, and it doesn't feel good, right? So I always think about just doing a little bit of a check and balances for yourself. And so if you've noticed that there are behaviors and things that are happening in the workplace that are not like you, and your energy is low, right? This may mean you either need to talk with someone, a professional, to help you kind of figure out and sort through what might be going on with you. It could be that there is a way that you need to have a bigger voice within the work environment. And so it's teaming with your supervisor and working from that angle of being able to figure out how you can find value and increase your motivation within the company, right? On the flip side, as a leader, you have to recognize these things within your staff, right? Most leaders have what we call supervision or check-ins with your staff. And I always coach teams about how to do appropriate check-ins and appropriate supervisions. And I call that reflective supervision. You can't just come in the room and say, hey, did you get this done? Did you send that email? Did you do that report? And not ask the person about how they're doing and how is it that they're able to get the things done? And hey, I noticed that, last week was a tough week. How did you get through that week? If you can do a much more holistic process of checking in with your staff, you're likely to find out what the issues are. And you're likely to find out why some of the challenges are happening in the workplace, right? So it's looking at it from both ends. The employee and the staff member themselves have a responsibility to take care of self and to look for things within self that are not right and basically put a plan in place to fix it. And then it's also the employer's responsibility or the leadership's responsibility to pay attention to these signs and bring it to the forefront.
What is your definition of resilience? Because you talk about building a resilient team. So let's slow down. I appreciate you giving us so much detail. This is perfect, by the way. And define what is resilience. How do you define resilient? And then go ahead and then we'll plug that onto the team side. You said building a resilient team. So that means we have high productivity. Does it mean we're coming to work every single day? Does it mean we're pushing through, although we're going through all the stuff going on? We keep pushing and pushing and pushing. What does resilient mean? And then what is a resilient team
mean? Yeah. So when I look at resilience, I'm thinking about the bounce back, right? So you think about a lot of teams right now, unfortunately, in a lot of workplace environments are feeling that they're within this draining or drained environment, right? It doesn't feel pleasant. It doesn't feel valuable. It doesn't feel good, right? That's not everybody's story, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people's story. And so building that resilience means building that bounce back. How do we get individuals or how do we get teams to bounce back and get back to the day-to-day, or again, achieve the mission or the goal of that organization. And how we can do that is, again, through the trauma-informed care sort of initiatives. I follow 6 core principles. And these 6 core principles really serve as the foundation to help teams figure out almost like these core values that we work and everything we do, policies, procedures, workflows, how do we talk to each other? How do we interact with each other? How we communicate? All of those things come together and help build that resilience back in that team. When you think about the pandemic, which, a lot of people, it's hard to determine where we are in the pandemic. Are we at the end? Are we, we in phase 5.4? Where are we? And, I think people are still trying to figure out where we are. But again, that was the most, I would say, impactful time that we all kind of know and share together, where teams probably became the most fractured. And so now it's time for people to try to figure out how we come back together. How do we build our resilience and come back to the mission that we're all set out to serve together.
Let's go to the C-suite. Let's go to the leader. Let's go to the person that's above. One thing I love, and I know you have Wise Choice Consulting, by the way. And I'm curious if you could share maybe 3 leadership qualities. We're always looking to get better. And there are a number of folks on here. They're a leader of their family. They're a leader in their community. They may be a leader as an entrepreneur. It might be a leader at the office. Maybe a leader in their faith walk or whatever it may be. And they're like, whoa, okay, building a resilient team is important, but I am the leader and I get the trauma-informed leadership. But here's the question. What is Adrienne Wise's perspective on what a great leader is, number one? And number 2, what are 3 qualities? You say, you know what, if you're listening right now, I can help build the team, but I can also build the leadership. 3 qualities that every leader should have in order to have a resilient team, as you talked about.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a gazillion qualities that make an effective leader. But if I had to narrow it down, I think honestly, or let me just narrow it down to 1. I think the one thing that really makes a leader an effective leader is someone who's willing to actively listen. Not just hear, but actively listen to the people who are working with them or working in the organization. Of course, you could be a solopreneur, and so listening to the community, or if you're serving products, listening to the customers, whatever, but you have to be willing to actively listen, because without that, you're not willing to grow. You're not willing to entertain what I like to say, sort of the alternative or the gray. And you'll be stifled sort of into this one hole or this one area. And you want to always be able to kind of think outside the box and think about your next plan. So I think to be an effective leader, you really do have to think about the tool of active listening. And for the 3 qualities that I think make an effective listener, for one, being empathetic, not being sympathetic, but being empathetic, really just being able to be present and be able to care. And again, there's that ingredient again of active listening to the people whom you're supervising or supporting. I think that you definitely have to come with a level of integrity, for sure. People are only going to listen to you when they feel like they can trust you. And which means in order for you to build trust, you have to be transparent. And you have to be as transparent as you can possibly be. Even if you don't know the answer, even if you don't know the solution, you have to be willing to say, hey, this is all the information I got, but I'm going to go back and figure out what I can do to get more information. And so I think, again, being empathetic, being trust or having integrity that builds trustworthiness, and being transparent. Absolutely.
They're watching right now. They're listening. They're even reading below and reading your bio. Some folks are Googling it. They're looking up Adrienne Wise Consulting. I know they're all in the Adrienne Wise right now. And they're curious. And I'm curious as well. What's the backstory that led you to doing what you're doing now? What was the pivotal moment where you said, you know what? This is my calling. So 2-part question. We want the origin story. Like, who is this person that's talking to us now? But we also want to know, what was that pivotal moment where she said, you know what? I'm all in. This is what I'm born to do. This is my superpower. And I'm going to help folks really build resilient teams using trauma-informed leadership.
Yeah. So, I'm a little bit of a unicorn, because I've actually found a way to merge 2 concepts together. It goes together very well and pairs together very well. But my background is as a therapist. And I work with the entire lifespan from ages 2 years old all the way up to adulthood. And through that work, in working in many different settings, I've worked in detention centers, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked with the homeless populations in doing this work. And I've just found a whole lot of trauma. And that being really the root cause to a lot of different issues. And to be honest with you, really was a lot of issues that fueled people to lead to other issues, or they weren't able to recover as well as we'd like them to be able to do. And then I was also a leader. So I was often running behavior health departments and running clinical departments in these organizations as a leader. And so I was like, lots of trauma. I'm a leader. I supervise staff who mirror a lot of issues and mirror a lot of things that I was seeing within the clients that I was serving. And I was like, those two things actually come together quite nicely, and was able to kind of see how, just really helping people understand that we all are humans and have stuff in our lives. And it's not possible for us all the time to just come to work, check all our personal stuff at the door, and be ready to work, right? And so we've got to be able to have a environment. We got to be able to have people and leaders that understand that and can find ways to support us through all of that, right? And again, it's not all the leaders' responsibility. We have to do some things for ourselves, but I think, they do have a lot of control over the environment and a lot of control over the culture, and more did they think. And yeah, so that's the story of kind of how all that came together. And, I'm probably no surprise to anybody else. I have come from a large background of family members, unfortunately, who've had mental health issues, and some I'm diagnosed, and just recognizing that there's still stigma associated with mental health. And that's always been kind of a passion of mine, to reduce stigma. And so I'm doing that in a very unique, non-traditional way. But yeah, that's kind of my background.
You're out saving the world, you're out making a difference, and you're out changing organizations for the better so they can accomplish their mission, their goals, and objectives. So I think you're off to a really good start, by the way. That's kind of cool. Folks might want to know, what do you do for fun? Like, when you're not out saving the world, making a difference, changing these companies and corporations, what do you do for fun?
Yeah. So, I use this voice in many different ways. So outside of coaching and consulting and training and therapy, I also sing. And
What?
so, yeah, I sing,
What genre? What genre do you sing? All of them, or what
I
genre?
like, R&B, neo soul. That's definitely my genre of music. At one point for about 3 years straight, I thought I was going to be the wedding singer of the DMV, because I was in a number of weddings singing almost every month. And so some of that has kind of died down a little bit, just because I'm so busy with all these other initiatives. But, whenever I get the opportunity or the chance, whether it's a karaoke or somebody's birthday, you can always see a mic in my hand. I'm probably going to be singing a tune.
That's kind of cool. Something I didn't know. That's kind of cool. You've had so many mentors along this journey of life, I'm sure. And I always tell people, I know it's tough and an unfair question, but it's relevant, I believe, because folks want to know, what's one of the lessons you've learned from any of your mentors along this journey of life that you can share with them. So she's passing something on that she's used herself as a mantra or as a philosophy. And it's a way that we all can benefit. Isn't that kind of cool, through the power of these fiber optic lines, that we can all benefit from something for someone who isn't even here?
Yeah.
Over to you.
Absolutely. I have a lot of people who have contributed to a good portion of my life, or have contributed in some way to my career and even my personality, and kind of how I am and how I choose to show up to people and to my family and in life in general. And but the one person that I would say is probably my father. My father was an educator, but he also was someone that battled with mental health issues, as well as substance use issues. And as even though he struggled interpersonally greatly, he was so gifted and so smart and so talented. And, every day he would try to instill something within me and encourage me to keep going and encourage me to keep moving. And one of the things I will also say is he did not live his life in fear at all. Regardless, again, of his own battles and his own struggles, he was definitely someone who did not live his life in fear, and was never afraid to be sort of that risk taker. And that's what he's instilled in me. And, this is kind of what's led me to this life of, I'm not full on entrepreneurship, but I'm almost there. I'm part-time. So I am a dualpreneur because I'm part-time with another organization. but he pushed me to just do it. And, that's not something I ever thought that I would be able to do. So my father's definitely been a great mentor to me.
Mm. So many books along this journey of life, by the way. I can probably turn around. If you looked at your Audible books or looked at your bookshelf, you can go back and say, you know what, Jay, I've read a lot of books in all my studies and all my leisure time. But what's one book that comes to mind? You got to take the Bible off the table, by the way. Maybe take Think and Grow Rich behind that. But what's one book that you read along the way that you just enjoyed and you said, you know what, this book has some impact on me? How did it impact you? And maybe you, the reader, as you're listening, you might want to go pick up that book. If you haven't read it, go get it. If you read it, you might want to reread.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the work that I do, especially with working with leadership teams, it reminds me of a great individual whom, if you all do not know her, you should Google her. Her name is Brené Brown. She is a wonderful speaker, motivational speaker, author. I mean, you name it. I don't know how many more boxes she can check, but she's amazing. And in my mind, I secretly think we're best friends because I just love the way that she could communicate words and informations and phrases in layman terms. I just love a person who can be able to take something that feels like it's all up in the clouds and kind of bring it down to earth and really kind of make it make sense. So Brené Brown has Dare to Lead. And I think that that's been one of the most phenomenal things that I've ever read, and is very impactful and, really helps leaders think about what it takes to truly lead. And that it's not just about checking boxes and delegating and telling them what to do. It's also about kind of operating or leading from a place of compassion and leading from a place of empathy.
Thanks. What does success look like for you these days? I know it changes as we evolve and go through certain rites of passages, but for where you are now in your life, with your family and so much going on, what does success look like? And more importantly, what does it feel like?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Success for me right now is in a few different compartments. I mean, one, I have a teenage son now who's 13 years old. Anybody out there who has teenagers, if we make it to tomorrow, it's a success, I mean that in a lot of ways, right? The fact that I could see him thrive and be engaged in sports and just do the things that he loves to do. And, we keep him pretty active, or I should say he keeps us pretty active, probably other way around. And we're always out traveling somewhere, right? So that to me, and just kind of seeing, small family, my husband and my son, and that's it. But, that's success, right? And just seeing us be able to kind of do our thing and do the things that we enjoy. I look at success in my business just as it's growing every day. I'm connecting with people every day. People are inboxing me, telling me things like, thank you so much for sharing that article, or thank you so much for your post that you made today. It really made me think about XYZ. That's success for me. It doesn't always have to be monetary, right? Because I count every single win. I don't care what the win is. The win that I woke up today, the win that, I get to go to sleep at night and I have somewhere to lay my head, the win that the lights, as you see behind me, are on and they're working. That's the win. So I think, I look at a lot of my success, I think probably more holistically and paying attention to those moments that we don't give enough credit to.
I love it. We have a segment here called Today is My January 1st. And I know for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. daily, you've been waiting to say those words. So you can go ahead and release it. Today is my January 1st. And for those folks that are watching for the very first time, welcome. Welcome to the family. We're glad you're here. Today is my January 1st is our personal mantra at the Happy Entrepreneur Show. It means that you get a fresh start. Today is my January 1st means you get a do-over. It means my past no longer equals my future, that I don't have to wait till December 31st on the back of a napkin at 11:59 p.m. to be able to say, hey, today is my January 1st. I'm ready to get going. No, today is your January 1st. And so my question to the one and only Adrienne Wise, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? And what are your words to inspire and to encourage those folks that are watching?
I think today is my January 1st. Again, I go back to my mentor, my original mentor, which was my birth father, which, I didn't share that he had passed away in 2012. But when I think of my January 1st, it is to definitely not be afraid to take the risk. Don't be afraid to step out there and do what you're passionate about and what you know you have been led and called to do, because that's where you're going to be most happy. That's going to be where you're going to thrive, where you're going to show up. And that's not going to be a job you want to leave, right? That's not going to be the thing that you get tired of doing, because you're going to want to do it every day, all day long, because that's where you are. So I think, not being afraid to take that risk. And again, calculated risk, I'm not saying jump all the way out there with no plan, but don't be afraid to take that risk and do what it is that you care about.
Thanks so much for sharing. Two questions. One, what type of clients are you working with these days, if your firm's taking on any clients? And how can folks best connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So later on this year, guys, I always said 2023 is my year, and I really mean it. So later on this year, I will be opening the counseling side of my practice. I'm in the process of hiring therapists, clinicians right now, so that they can take on, both kids as well as adult clients, and we'll be working virtually. If you're here in the DC area, that's exactly where we'll be sort of operating our counseling services. And then on the consulting side, well, that's every day, all day long, Shay. So nonprofit, government agencies, small businesses, solopreneurs, two-peoplepreneurs, whatever you are, I will work with you. And that's an any industry, because trauma does not discriminate. And trauma doesn't just show up in particular SES systems, and it doesn't show up in particular businesses that's only got a revenue of $2,000 a month, right? It's going to show up in places where there are people, and that's what I do. I work with people. And so I want to just say that let's heal you and your workplace together.
I love it. Thank you so much, Adrienne, for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate it. You're amazing. You're incredible. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Shay. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We appreciate you. Without you, there is no show, by the way. So thank you for being here. And I want you to know that you're awesome. I love sharing it with you because it's so true. You're amazing. Doesn't that feel good? And for you, today is your January 1st. Happy New Year. And what that represents, and that means, is that your best is still yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name, by the way, is Shay Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. And I promise you from the bottom of my heart, we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. Remember, time is long. Life, on the other hand, is very, very short. So you got to live in the moment. You got to make it count. God bless and wish you success. Thanks a lot, Adrienne. We appreciate you. We out here. Bye-bye, everybody.